YouTube. Good afternoon. So glad to be here with you all today. This is your first time, my name is Coach Janet, and I have a podcast called Husband Love Your Wives. And on this podcast, we talk about marriage and the way God intended it to be. Okay, and we're rooted love over here. So, but I just want you all to like, share, and subscribe. Call somebody, let them know that there's a lady on live, and she's talking about marriages and how God intended for marriage to be. I've been married for 44 years, and I think that I'm able to tell somebody something. I have a psychology degree, so I think I can tell somebody a little something, something. But today we're talking about anger. We're talking about anger in a marriage. Share the live. I'm going to ask you all to share the live. And for all those that were here with us over the weekend with all the snow, I want to say welcome back to Husbands Love Your Wives. Welcome back. And so we're going to talk a little bit about anger today in marriage. And so I'm going to ask you all to like, share, and subscribe if you have not already done so. So we're talking about anger in marriage. We're talking about anger in marriage. We're not talking about the kind of anger that you pretend it isn't there. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the kind of anger that you want to spiritualize away. We're not talking about, the kind of anger that you want to dismiss. But we're talking about the kind that shows up when you may be tired, you may be hurt, you may be misunderstood, you may be triggered. That's the time we were talking about, that type of anger, you all. And so anger in itself, we're not talking about anger being sin, because if you read your Bible, you know that the Bible says be angry and sin not. But we're talking about uncontrolled anger. I'm going to ask you all to like, share, and subscribe. We're talking about uncontrolled anger, okay? And I know a lot of people might be in a relationship, and this can go along with, relationships as well. We're talking about uncontrolled anger and how it damages marriage. And so we know the scripture says, be angry and sin not. If you look in the book of Ephesians, you'll find that. But today we're talking about what anger reveals and what anger reveals in a marriage. And I also want to add self-discipline, because self-discipline can help protect love. I want to talk about self-discipline a little bit. And I got a lot of ground to cover with it, because I want to share some of the things that, I don't know if you all went to church yesterday, but we had some church going on, and it was so good for us to discuss self-discipline. And so I wanted to talk about anger in a marriage. I wanted to talk about that. Okay. And I also want to talk about self-discipline, because that's what's going to help those that get into anger or a disagreement in their marriage. Self-discipline is one of the things that can help when the disagreement gets kind of heavy. And if you're married or been into a relationship, you know that sometimes you're not going to always agree with your partner. And sometimes that it can get kind of heavy in a relationship. And we're talking about anger. Anger is what? Anger is often comes from unmet expectations. That's where anger can come from. And I know you all, if you've been in a relationship, you know where anger can come from. It can come from unmet expectation, such as, I'm going to give an example. You can be in a relationship, or not say relationship, you can be in a marriage, okay? Okay? You can be in a marriage, marriage is a covenant. And, your spouse can promise you something, correct? And you've been together for 5, 10 years, and he did not meet, or she did not meet the expectation that they gave you, they were going to give you something. And they did. It could be a house, it could be a new car, whatever. I'm saying anger is often from unmet expectations. It also, anger can come from unhealed wounds. And I say that, I want you all to share the live for me. I say that because sometimes people are unhealed. Sometimes people are unwell, and they already have things going on, but then they bring it over in the marriage. They've already had some things to happen to them, and then they bring them in the marriage. Okay? Unhealed wounds can cause you to be angry because you're already angry. You can have fear, pain, looking for a voice. This can cause anger. Okay? And so we're talking about anger in a marriage. In a marriage, anger usually isn't about the moment. But let me tell you about anger. Anger builds. Because sometimes you can be in a marriage or a relationship, and sometimes they'll do something and you'll let that slide. You're thinking about that thing. You go, okay, I ain't gonna say nothing this time. I'm not gonna say anything this time. And then, then you go, well, I'm gonna let that slide. Something else come up. So anger usually builds, and it comes to be like an unspoken resentment. Okay? You can sometimes feel disrespected. You can also sometimes feel an unseen. I'm so glad. I want to see some of us in the chat if some people are talking to me. And so we're talking about anger in a marriage. And sometimes you have feelings of unsafe emotions. All right? Now, we want to talk about anger, and we want to talk about what it's like. All right? We want to talk about, let's see here, when anger goes unchecked. When anger goes unchecked. Now, when anger goes unchecked, I want to let you all know, because I know about what I'm talking about. When anger goes unchecked, a lot of times, harsh words come. You say all kind of things to your partner, to your husband, to your wife. If you let anger go unchecked, it can turn into harsh words. It can turn into something called stonewalling. And what is stonewalling? Stonewalling is what? It's when you're like talking to someone and they turn into a stone wall. That's what stonewalling is. You're talking to them and they act like they don't hear you. They check out. You're trying to get something resolved here. You're trying to talk to them, and they're so angry until they just want to leave and pretend like you're not even there. Right? When anger goes unchecked, it turns into control. It turns into emotional withdrawal. When anger goes unchecked, it can turn into, I know some of you might know about this one, it can turn into explosion. And so we have to be in check. And see, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about when you're in a marriage or you're in a relationship and you get in anger, and you the lady, you the wife, you go in anger, and then the man go in anger, and then it's a big explosion. But see, I want to tell you all something about self-discipline. See, we on here, and it might sound like I'm preaching, but I'm trying to tell you all something, and I'm trying to show you all something, that anger, unchecked anger, can turn into something else. And if you've ever been into a relationship, if you've ever been into a marriage, anger can get so bad that it can turn physical. And so we don't want to talk about that. We don't want things to go into physical, because when it goes into the physical, that means somebody has lost control. But when you have self-discipline, is not control over your spouse, but self-discipline is control over yourself. And self-discipline is evidence that you have maturity. Self-discipline. And this is what I'm telling you all about, because sometimes when you have self-discipline, you might not have to call that police. If you have self-discipline, you're going to protect that covenant of marriage. If you have that self-discipline. See, self-discipline in marriage means that you're pausing instead of reacting. Okay? When you have self-discipline in a marriage, you pause instead of you getting ready to do like this right here in somebody's face. You listen instead of defending. When you have self-discipline in a marriage, you listen instead of defending. You choosing restraint instead of revenge. And if you married, sometimes that can come to your mind. I don't know, some people are not so revengeful, but I'm just saying, when you have self-discipline going on, you're strong, okay? Because you have control over yourself. And it's not going to be a lot of cursing words. It's not going to be a lot of sarcasm. You know what that means, being sarcastic. Because you have control over your mouth. You have control over your body. Self-discipline. Self-discipline in a marriage looks like responding instead of exploding. That's what self-discipline look like in a marriage. What we talking about? We're talking about anger in a marriage. But we're talking about also self-discipline. Self-discipline looks like, what does it look like? What does it look like in real life? Self-discipline. What does it look like? It looks like walking away to cool down. That's what self-discipline looks like. You have control over yourself. You're walking away and cooling down. That's what self-discipline looks like in a marriage. It looks like lowering your voice. Am I speaking loud enough for you all to hear me? Am I speaking loud enough for you all to hear me? Big money motivator. Yes. Yes. This is what Jamal in 9708 says. Be advised. Okay. Well, I don't know what that means. Unhealthy. Oh, wait. Unhealthy and can lead to lack of meaningful relationship. Okay. Isis says responding instead of exploding. And Big Money Motivator says bullseye, boom, bullseye. That's great. I'm glad that you all are getting it. And because self-discipline looks like, in real life, self-discipline looks like lowering your voice. Okay? When you get emotional aroused, you're going to lower your voice. That's what self-discipline looks like. Okay? Because in self-discipline leads to life and peace. Who wants peace in their marriage? And I'm going to tell you something I found out about our men folk. Our men folk, that's one of the main things that they talk about for as a marriage. They want their peace. They want their peace. Ladies, men talk about having that peace. They want that peace. Now, I ain't talking about that peace, that other peace. I'm talking about that P-E-A-C-E peace. But them men be wanting that peace. They want both of them, I guess. All right, let's move on. Self-discipline, what does it look like? Self-discipline looks like saying, I need a moment, instead of saying something damaging. Because a lot of times when you get in the heat of the moment, All type of things start flying. Words start flying, damaging words, cursing words, slamming doors, all kind of things happen. We talk about stonewalling. You trying to say, hey, and they don't even want to hear you. But self-discipline looks like choosing respect instead of, when you get angry. That's what self-discipline look like. You're going to choose respect. I'm going to respect my husband regardless if I am a little upset, I have a disagreement with him. I'm going to respect him. I'm going to respect my wife regardless. I'm going to respect. This is what self-discipline looks like in a marriage. Because self-discipline, it protects love when emotions threaten to destroy it. See, your emotions, that's what I'm talking about, that's self-discipline. We got to get in control of our emotions. We have to get in control of our emotions. Thank you all for liking the live. I appreciate that. Thank you for liking the live and share the live with some of your friends. I'm thankful for that, because we're talking about anger. Now, let me give you all 10 tips for handling an angry spouse. Because sometimes them spouses, they get so upset, until they get dangerous. But this is how you handle an angry spouse. I want you all, if you want to write this down, if I could get somebody to type up in the chat, this is what you do to handle an angry spouse. Number one is good to do is, don't you match up their energy. Don't you go tit for tat. If they upset and they scream and holler, don't you start screaming and hollering. Scream. If they start cussing, saying cuss words, this is what I want to say. If they start calling you names, thank you so much. Don't match their energy. Thank you. If they start calling you names, don't you start calling them names. If they start calling you, because I'm telling you, if you've ever been in a disagreement, just because they're calling you monkey, that don't mean you got to go back and call them monkey or you bear. This is how you handle an angry spouse. You listen to understand, not to win. I'm going to tell you why. You listen to understand and not to win, because you really want, because see, anger might, when your emotions are out of control, and a lot of times anger will cause you to act a certain way, talk a certain way, but you listen to understand and not to win, because you win when you keep the covenant and you keep the peace in the marriage. That's how you got to want to protect your covenant. You got to want to protect your marriage. You win when you don't say, well, I won that one. Honey, I tore his head up. You get on talking to your girlfriend, honey, I tore his head up. He said this to me, I said that, and I dared him to say anything else. You understand what I'm saying? But you win when you do what? You win when the marriage is still together. You win when you come together and you start to apologize. Let's go to number 3. You validate feelings without agreeing with behavior. You understand what I'm saying? You validate feelings. If you know your spouse is right, instead of you getting huffy with them and this and that and storming out the door, agree with them. Calm yourself down. Okay. Number 2 is listen to understand and not to win. That's what number 2 is. Listen to understand and not to win. And number 3 is validate feelings without agreeing with behavior. If your husband is right, say, you know what, you're right. Thank you so much. You need to tell them, you're right, honey, you're right. Because remember, your marriage means more than this disagreement. All right, number 4, avoid absolute language. Never say no, never say never. Never say you don't care. Don't ever tell your spouse that I don't care. Don't ever tell your spouse that. Now, this is a big one. Avoid absolute language. Don't ever tell your spouse, I don't care. you know, because your anger is so have risen so high, you know, and don't ever say you always. Some words you shouldn't even say. You shouldn't even bring up. Okay. And number 5, lower your tone. We talked about that earlier. Lower your tone. Lower your tone. That's number 5. You need to lower your tone when you're in a disagreement. You know when you're in a disagreement. You know about that. You know how you feel. So you need to lower, because when you have a high volume while you're talking or discussing something, that escalates conflict. When you got mad, when you start raising your voice, so I start raising my voice, then the blame comes. Okay? Number 6, take a time out if emotions spike. What they say? Time out. Time out. Take a time out when emotions spike. Okay? Because a lot of times people need a break when they're upset. Because, and I'm going to tell you what's really important. What's really important, if the marriage is important to you, and if it's important for you all to stay together, then you'll do what it takes to keep it together. Number 7, stay present and don't shut down. Stay present. And I know that's hard for some people to stay present and don't, because a lot of times when arguments come, disagreements come, conflict come, people shut down. I don't want to talk about this. And they move away. And they sit over there and they saw, as they say, used to say long years ago, they would say, and they saw about things, about the event. So don't shut down, because if you're in a relationship, if you're in a marriage, then you are mature. You are mature. Okay? Another one is speak facts, not accusation. Don't accuse your spouse for certain things. Don't accuse your spouse. You know how people say, I felt hurt when you did this or you did that. A lot of times when people get in disagreement, that's when old stuff come up. That's when old stuff come up, and they bring up something a month ago or 2 months ago or last year, and so speak facts and don't accuse people of things, especially when it's not true. You don't know if it's true or not. All right, number 9 is choose timing wisely. All right, some conversations need rest before repair. And so you need to choose the time that you're going to talk about certain things. You need to choose your time when you're going to talk about certain things. Some things you don't need to talk about at a certain time. All right? And invite God into the moment, because it's good to pray. It's good to pray you on. We're talking about anger and self-discipline. And so after a heavy disagreement, sometimes you have these heavy disagreements, you all, that you have to handle. All right? And so after the disagreement, it has to be healing. And I want to tell you one thing that helps when you have a heavy disagreement. One of the things that help, I know, is apologize without excuses. Spouses, you need to apologize without excuses. Don't bring up nothing else. You just need to say, listen, I'm sorry I reacted like that. Or I apologize for speaking to you in that tone. This is moving forward now after a heavy disagreement. If you want to move forward, you need to acknowledge your part of how you do a certain thing right, and apologize. And a lot of times when people apologize, what they try to do is they still try to put a blame on something, on you. Well, if you hadn't said this, you were saying this right here, and you blame me. Okay? And when you do that, that can cause, you know, some things are not going to go on well, because see, you're trying to heal. You're trying to heal the hurt or the disagreement. You're trying to move forward. And sometimes, the thing about it is when somebody's apologizing, sometimes people have a hard time apologizing, and then sometimes people have a hard time forgiving. When a great disagreement or argument has come about, sometimes people have a hard time forgiving. They have a hard time apologizing, because some people don't think they ever do anything wrong. I don't know if you've ever seen people like that. They don't think they've ever done anything wrong. They think they're right all the time. We were talking about that last week, about how people that are narcissists. And one thing about a narcissist is they don't ever think they're wrong. And they'll tell you in a minute, 99.9999 times I'm right. They'll tell you that. Do you all know that's the characteristics of a narcissist? And a lot of times people that's narcissistic, they don't even want to acknowledge they're wrong. They don't even want to apologize because they hate to apologize. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about anger. We're talking about anger in a marriage, anger in a relationship. Okay? And sometimes when you talk and you have a disagreement, the issue is not settled. It's not a settled issue. You didn't settle the issue. So you have to come back. You have to revisit it when the emotions are settled. when it's safe to come back and talk about it. Don't ever not come at, and then when you come back with a better attitude. Don't come back with the same attitude and just almost like you ready to fight, because we got to talk about these finances. We have $500 in the bank for such and such and such. And why are you going to take $300 out from there? And you didn't say anything to me about it. And we had this money saved up. We had this $500 saved for whatever, And then, and that's how it is in marriage sometimes, And so some things, and I know a lot of people might not believe this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Set boundaries. And people say, well, how do you why would you set boundaries in a marriage? Let me tell you something. It's good to set boundaries when you're married, or even before you get married, because you need to let them know this is not what I'm going to put up with. If we're going to have an account together, put our money together, I'm not going to be putting up with you touching the money that we have saved up for something. Okay, that's a boundary. You let them know we're not touching that money unless we both agree upon it, and it's an emergency to touch that money, to touch the finances. Because a lot of times that's what people, they do. A lot of times people will agree, okay, but it can cause a problem. Thank you. It can cause a problem when you set boundaries. You let them know what the boundaries are, and then they cross over the boundaries. You draw the line, and you say, okay, now we're not going to do this. And then they cross over the boundaries, and you say, wait a minute. Well, didn't I tell you that we're not doing this? What went on with you? So set the boundaries. If you need to set them, set the boundaries. And this can help moving forward. So you can be married 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you can still set boundaries, because you're doing what? You want to protect your covenant. You want to protect your marriage. And you don't have to get a divorce, but you got to work together. You got to work together, okay? And so that's That's something that's important that you, and that's respect. Because I wrote a post, I did a little post not too long ago, and it says if someone doesn't respect your boundaries, then they're really not respecting you. If they don't respect your boundaries, then you need to, reevaluate that relationship that you have. Okay? Now, let's talk about this a little bit. When disagreement escalates to physical action. Okay? Listen. Just want to talk about it a little bit because it's true. Because I want you all to know, and I want to be clear with this, that when you love and when you're married, that doesn't mean that you have to put up with abuse. I know I want to say these things the way I can say it. I usually have my daughter here to tell me, oh, you can't say that, because there's certain things you can't say because I don't want to get blocked, a ban. But physical aggression is never acceptable in a marriage. Physical aggression is never acceptable in a marriage. Not pushing, not grabbing, not throwing objects, not intimidation. These are never, and if anger escalates toward physical action, you need to make sure you have some distance there, and you need to make a plan to get in a safe place. And this is why we're talking about anger in a marriage, in a relationship. This is why we're talking about it, okay? Because it's very important to have a 501c3, and that's what we cater to. We have a 501c3. A nonprofit organization. We cater to women and children. And that's, I want to talk about that a little bit because, some people think it's all right once you marry, they think it's all right for you to do whatever they want to do. And that is not the case here. If you want to continue in a good relationship, that's a boundary. Don't put your hands on me in the wrong way. That's a boundary, and that's good to talk to somebody about before you get into a relationship, before you get into a marriage. You let them know we're not going there. You let them know we're not going to the point where we have to get physical. Because when you get to the point when you have to go physical, it's time to go get help. It's time to seek help right away. All right? And on the long run, you need to maybe, go to counseling or therapy or, anger management. Some people need anger management. You know what I'm saying? They need anger management. They need to be accountable for their actions. And love doesn't mean that you're going to endure physical abuse, verbal abuse, any type of abuse. That doesn't mean that you love someone. That doesn't mean that you love someone because you go through the different things and you're putting up with it year after year after year. After a while, you're going to say, this is enough of this. It don't have to take a year. And like I said before, nobody has to tell you that you need to leave. Because marriage is no excuse for abuse. Just because you married to somebody, you got to take everything they put on you. I think not. Either you got to go or they got to go. Okay? And I'm being honest with you. This is a real podcast, and I get real with people because it's important. Okay? It's important to know just because you married, you don't have to put up with a lot of foolishness. This is Husband Love Your Wife podcast, okay? And we are honest around here, and we talk about different situations, because marriage can survive anger though, okay? But self-discipline needs to be there to lead the way. You need self-control. I'm going to say it again. In a marriage, in a relationship, you need self-control. Hi there, BCJ 1973. narcissistic. That's right, self-control. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about anger. We're talking about self-control, self-discipline. This is what we're talking about. And because marriage is the design for two people that love each other, to get along, with one another, to respect one another. This is what marriage is for. Marriage is a covenant. And when you see you're in a marriage and you really not getting along, then because marriage is work by itself. Okay? Marriage is work. I just want to say that to everybody. And sometimes it can seem difficult at times, but you have to want it to work. I want to say that. You got to want it to work, and not just you. I want you to know, not just you got to want it to work, but it's two got to want it to work. You can't, if the other party really doesn't want it to work out, then you can't do it by yourself. And you can beg and you can plead and you can say, oh, honey, I just wish you would listen to me. And you can plead some more. If that other half don't want to cooperate, if they don't want to, they want to stay in the same old way, same old this, same old that, it's almost impossible, I want to say, for the other party to keep it together, because you get tired. And I'm going to share with you all what someone told me years ago. Right. What someone told me years ago was a husband. You want to know what a husband is? A husband is someone that bands keep the marriage together. That husband is supposed to really, now he can't do it by himself. He can't do it by himself, right? But he's supposed to keep the marriage together. Now, ladies, I just want you all to know that over here on TikTok, over here on YouTube. A lot of times we women, we'll do some of everything because we love, and we'll do some of everything to try to keep the marriage together. But a husband band is supposed to band around the marriage, and they're supposed to keep the marriage together. I want you husbands to hear me. I want you husbands to hear me, because husbands love your wives. Husbands are supposed to love their wives, and they're supposed to keep it together. All right? They're supposed to keep that marriage together. That's right. A wife is supposed to be a helpmate. But that husband, he's supposed to keep it together. And a wife needs to support her husband, and she needs to pray for him. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that. A wife needs to pray for her husband. All right? But and do you all know that if the husband, I want to share this, if the husband is not good to the wife, his prayers would be hindered. I know people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that. People don't want it. But you got to be good. The husbands, you got a wife, okay? Now, I want to go through this here, you all. I know this is a little different, but I want to go through this his and hers companion worksheet. And I said, this would probably be good for me to have on. It's a his and hers worksheet. It's a companion worksheet. Because in a marriage, you're going to not get along all the time. There's going to be sometimes you are going to be angry. But you have to have self-discipline so you can heal and continue to love one another. In a marriage that there's no growth in love, it can be a problem. Okay? It can be a problem when your marriage doesn't grow in love. Even as you get older, the marriage should be growing. Okay? Now, in his worksheet, number one is a personal reflection. And on the worksheet, It says, when I feel angry in our marriage, I usually, and this is what the things that a man is supposed to check himself. Listen, this is a personal reflection. Because when you have a disagreement, it's good after the disagreement and you're moving forward to check yourself. Okay? Check yourself. Do a self-reflection about, when you feel angry, what do you usually do? Do you raise your voice? Husbands, do you raise your voice when you're feeling angry? Do you raise your voice? Do you shut down emotionally? I'm talking to the husbands now. Do a self-reflection. Because if you really want your marriage, you're going to do that self-reflection, and you're going to try to do better the next time, anytime a conflict arises. All right? So, when I feel angry in a marriage, I usually raise my voice, shut down emotionally, become defensive, try to fix things immediately, walk away. Then when you get angry, come on, husbands, I'm talking to you all now. Do you walk away when you feel angry in your marriage? Do you walk away? I want you all to let me know, husbands, I'm talking to you. Do you walk away? Do you say things like, I regret, I hate I married her, when you get angry? All right? Or do you stay silent? That's what I want to know. Husbands, I'm talking to the husbands right now. Do you stay silent and you give her the silent treatment? You know that's emotional abuse, right? Husbands, when you give your wife the silent treatment, you know that's emotional abuse? All right. I'm asking you, hi, Josh B. Manager. Josh B. Manager, do you raise your voice at your wife when you get upset with her? If you say no, you're doing good. Do you shut down emotionally? Do you shut down? Come on now, it's time to tell the truth. The husband love your wife is to help the community. It's able to help you in your marriage. Husbands love your wife. Do you shut down emotion? Do you become defensive? Husbands, do you walk away when you get angry? Husbands, because that's not the thing to do. Do you say things that you regret? Do you stay silent? Do you do stonewalling? Husbands, say this. Anger for me is often connected to what feelings? When you're angry, do you feel disrespected? Do you feel disrespected? Do you feel unappreciated? Do you feel unappreciated? Do you feel unheard? Husbands, when you're angry, do you feel overwhelmed? Husbands, do you feel overwhelmed? Oh, I just want you all to answer these questions. Do you feel pressured when you're angry? Through checking phones nowadays, insecure. Husbands, do you feel not trusted? Are you triggered by past experiences when you're angry? How do you feel? You need to know. You need to know yourself. I did a 30-day on TikTok, and I was talking about how to know yourself. See, you need to know yourself, because when you know yourself in your marriage, in your relationship, then you can love better. But you need to know yourself. All right? Now that was for the husbands. When the conflicts get heated, do you commit to pausing before responding? Do you wait before you say something? Husbands, do you pause before responding? Do you lower your voice? Do you lower your voice? Do you walk away to cool down, just to cool down now? And do you listen without interrupting? Do you pray silently? Let me tell you something about prayer, you all. I'm going to say this. Well, and when you're upset, I want to say this here. When you are upset, it's good to pray when you're upset. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you start praying to the Almighty, you'll calm down yourself. You're talking to a woman, I'm a woman that believes in prayer. And when you start praying, then you'll calm yourself down. Because no one needs high blood pressure from getting into conflict with your spouse. Husbands, you all need safety and responsibility. Anger never justifies physical or emotional harm. And we know that about you're not supposed to be, just because you're angry, that don't mean you put your hands on somebody in the wrong way. So, what husbands need to do, if conflict escalates, you need to agree to stop the conversation immediately. Create physical space, and then you can seek help for whatever you're going through. Because I said you can come back and talk, when things has cooled down. Now let's go to the her worksheet. Wives, we're talking to you now. And we're going to do a personal reflection on the wives. Wives, where are you? Let me know if you're there. I just want to go through this personal reflection on this worksheet. When you feel angry in your marriage, what do you usually do? Wives, what do you usually do when you feel angry in your marriage? Do you cry? Do you cry? What do you do? Do you raise your voice? This is something that you need to think about. Do you shut down? Wives, when you're angry in your marriage, what do you usually do? Do you cry? Do you shut down? Do you repeat yourself over and over again, saying the same thing when you get angry? Do you become sarcastic? I'm guilty. I would get sarcastic in a minute when I'm being honest. When I was when we would get in an argument or disagreement, I would say, I would get sarcastic now. I had to get rid of that one. Do you withdraw emotionally, ladies, wives? Do you withdraw emotionally? And do you feel unheard when you get angry? You need to know how you are. That's what I'm telling everybody to do. A self-reflection on yourself. Okay, wives, say this to yourself. Anger for me is often connected to what feelings? Are you connected to feelings of unheard? Are you connected to feelings of unvalued? Do you feel like you're not valued when you get angry in your marriage? Do you feel unsafe emotionally? Ladies, wives, do you feel dismissed? Do you feel overwhelmed when you get into a disagreement or when you feel angry? Do you feel lonely? And are you triggered by past wounds when you get angry? That's the reason why everybody needs to have a healing going on. I love when people say in a minute, and this is good. I'm telling you what this is good about. When you see people acting certain ways, uncontrollable, when you see them, listen, when you see people acting a certain way, they're unwell. They're unhealed. They're still dealing with some issues. Because if you're healed, you're going to act differently. And they might even be, I would say, tired. When you find people acting certain ways, they don't know how to speak calmly when they're angry. Sometimes they're just unwell. When emotions rise, ladies, wives, say, I commit to what? Speaking calmly. Listen up, ladies, wives. When emotions rise, you need to say, I commit to speaking calmly. I commit to taking a pause. Ladies, you need to commit to asking to be heard respectfully. And that's a big one because in a marriage, there should be respect, 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 even if you're in a disagreement. But a lot of times when you're dating or courting, you don't see that. You don't really know because people put on this mask when you're courting. They put on their best face. They put on their best attitude. But once you end the marriage, this is when you find out how a person really is. Once you end the marriage, once you have jumped over the broom, you find out how a person really is. And then you have to deal with that, or either you can say, I'm not dealing with this. And that's when boundaries come in. And I'm sharing this with the people that are not maybe not married yet, but thinking about marriage. Set your boundaries first before you say I do. Set your boundaries before you say I do. And you love yourself enough. You love yourself enough to say, listen, I'm not putting up with that. I'm not putting up. Know what you'll go through and know what you won't go through. Know what you tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. And it's going to save you a world of trouble. It's going to save you a world of heartache and pain. And I mean that. It's going to save you. And so this is what I want the women to do. You need to pray before responding. And I forgot this one. Avoid hurtful language. See, when you know some hurtful language that you can use on your husband, or against your husband, or against your wife. You know what it is. And some people, they got their weapons out, ammunition, and they're ready to fight. But if your marriage means something to you, if your marriage means something to you, you're not going to be fighting so much. You're going to say, I love you. And because I love you, I want us to get along. Am I not right? You say, I love you. I want us to get along with one another. And some things that you're just not going to say. If you really that relationship, you're not going to say some things. You're going to, as the old people say, you're going to bite that tongue and you're going to say, okay, I'm not going to say that. Okay? Because the bottom line is this, everyone. The bottom line is, if you really want your marriage, you'll do what it takes to keep it going. And you'll move forward. And you'll act different. You'll be different. You'll act different. You'll be different. Okay? You'll be different. You want to know why you'll be different? You'll be different because you want your marriage. And you don't really want to go to divorce court. You don't really want to go to divorce court because you want to have self-control. You want to have self-control. You want to keep self-control in your marriage. You want to keep self-control in your relationship. You want to keep self-control. And when you're out of control, that's what I'm saying. Anytime you get into any type of disagreement, check yourself. Look how you're reacting. Look what you're doing. Look what you're saying. Listen to yourself. Okay? Listen to yourself. When you speak, speak with respect. If you can't speak with respect, it's time for somebody to walk out the door. You know what I'm saying? 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 You know what I'm saying I'm telling you all what I know, not just what I think. I'm telling you what I know, and it's important to have. I want to say this before we go. It's important to have boundaries, and let your spouse know what your boundaries are. Set boundaries. Because if you don't set boundaries, you could be going through for a long time, especially when you're trying to put on airs, like your marriage is so good to the world. You know those people that when they get out, they act like they had the best marriage in the world, but then when they come home, they're not even talking to each other. And when they do to each other, they cussing each other out. Get over here. I ain't about talking to you. Like, I don't care. Talking all kind of ways when they get behind closed doors. But I want to encourage everyone. You love your wife, men, husbands, love her privately and publicly. If you love your wife, if you love your husband, ladies, love him privately and publicly. And that's work sometimes. Because a lot of times in a marriage, you have to put up with things that you really don't like. Okay? You have to put up with things you don't like. And then guess what? A lot of times you don't find out those things until after you get married. You don't find those things out. So it's a lot of give and take, you all. It's a lot of give and take. All right, today we talked about anger, and I am encouraging everyone to study self-discipline, because that self-discipline can help save your marriage. That's what I want to say. But one person cannot do it. It has to be both parties. It has to be two. The old people would say it takes two to tango. But it takes two people to make a marriage work. And if you are in a marriage, there's only one person that's pulling for the marriage and the other person is pulling the other way, that marriage, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because the other person is really not rooting and pulling for it anyway. They're not. So it takes two. And you, ladies, are husbands, wives are husbands. You need to let your other half know that. Say, listen, do you want this marriage or not? I'm pulling it for it. And if you're not pulling for it, all right. If you're not pulling for the marriage, then how is it going to work? All right, how's it going to work? And I'm rooting for you all's marriage. I know it can be tough, but but like I said, my parents were married for 50 plus years, and my dad was good to my mom. I don't even know if he even talked about husband love your wives. I don't know, because I never talked to my dad about that. But he loved his wife, and so that's what I'm talking about. And if you love and you respect one another, I want to say this: you could be married for a long time. And so I love you all, and we'll come on Monday nights, Monday afternoon at 5 p.m. I love you all, and I hope you all have a great week this week. Stay warm and stay safe. Peace.